Good morning, everyone who is watching this in replay mode. We are live from the road today. Well, Steph's in her cozy house, but we may be having issues, so this show may last for 5 minutes, and then it'll be the best 5 minutes of your day. So my
Cups
name's
up to that.
exactly. Oh wait, to go cups up to that. My name is Elizabeth Doss, and I am a social media consultant. I love helping people think about how they're showing up on social and come up with ideas with them. But I also am a Giphy artist. My gifts have been viewed almost 6 billion times now, Steph. That number keeps getting higher. But I help brands and businesses leverage animated GIFs across social to be able to show up for their communities in fun, unexpected ways. And so I'm going to hand things over to Stephanie this morning to introduce herself and to introduce our topic.
Listen, like you said, good morning. Hello, everyone. Cups up. Happy Tuesday. We don't know what's going to happen today, and that is the fun of it because we're still here showing up, trying to encourage others to push those buttons and do the things and lean into what brings you a little bit of joy, maybe with a side of frustration from now, from time to time. So I'm Stephanie Gillis Paulgard. I am the brand architect behind Take Roots Consulting, and I help small businesses and nonprofits with their storytelling strategy. And that includes both those traditional methods of the news releases and all the stuff that has been, well, some people say it's long since gone. It is not. And also pairing that with, our good friend social media. It is a great tool to have in our toolkit. And oftentimes people are feeling a little overwhelmed on how to produce content. Where do they start with content? How do they repurpose content? And that's why today's topic, I think, is going to be super useful, regardless of if it's 5 minutes or the whole 30 minutes. It is a strategy that Elizabeth, you and I have been talking about, and you introduced it over on Clubhouse way back when. And it's the cake pop strategy and the notion of the repurposing and the bite sized pieces of content. So, with that a little setup, I'm going to pass it over to you and I'm going to start pushing the buttons because you can't push the buttons while you're, on tour.
I am pushing my own buttons this morning, apparently. That's where I'm at. So I have talked about this a little bit over on social, my Instagram, etc., talking about the cake pop theory. And what this idea is really trying to help yourself out along the way, where the cake pop theory is that a lot of times people want to give the whole cake in their conversations, in their posts. They think they need to have their background, the history of their business, the disclaimer of all the things that they do or don't do, or like what this means or doesn't mean, all of the techniques, they're trying to stuff everything into this one post every time. And the truth of the matter is you do not have to do that. There are places where long form content like that exists and does a really great job. So for instance, YouTube, you can have your long form content, as well as like newsletters, whether they're email newsletters or LinkedIn, or Stephanie, I've been checking out Substack, and it is really, really cool. It's like a multimedia type blog situation that I'm really fascinated by, because they also have an audio portion where it can turn into a podcast. It's a whole big thing. So check out Substack if you haven't done so already, as a hub for all of these things. But so the newsletter, the long form on YouTube, a blog that you may write, podcasts are great for long form content. So these are the places where these longer pieces can dwell. But social should be thought of as a way to point towards longer content like that. So if you have the top 3 ways to pack your suitcase, which I did none of those things. I mean, I packed a suitcase, but I don't think I used any tips when I did it this time. I was just stuffing everything in there. Um, but so let's say 5. If you have the top 5 ways to pack a suitcase, and that's your long form content, you dive deep in it, you go into each thing, you could take each one of those and turn it into its own post. And saying, here's a way to do this one thing. And then in the caption, or even at the end of the video, say, if you'd like the other 4 tips, then visit this, then go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, because that's where you're going to find more content. Go to my Substack and subscribe. Go to my email newsletter and you'll get the whole thing. And so using them in that way. And Steph, you have done this. So sorry, back to the cake pop theory. I'll go to you in a second, Steph. Instead of trying to serve them the entire cake, which is the cakey part, the icing part, the decorations, you're trying to stuff this whole thing in them. What you're going to do is take one little portion of it, a bite-sized version, a little cake pop version that has the same flavor of the cake. It has the same icing, it has the same decoration on it, but it's a sample bite that then points them to the rest of the cake that they can eat and devour, but it gives them the taste of the thing that hopefully sparks them to want to have more. And you can go anywhere with this, Stephanie, but one thing I was thinking of is how you do this on Instagram stories, where you maybe you have your 5 tips for, I'm just going to stick with packing suitcase. 5 tips for packing a suitcase. In your Instagram stories, you could share 2 or 3 of those. And then in the next slide, say, if you'd like the other 2, then click this link and go to your blog or go to that YouTube video that's going to be the full thing. And so, what's one of the ones that you've done in the past where you've done that, where you've given 1 or 2? Do you remember any of the topics that you were giving for that?
Oh my gosh, there's always so many different topics, right? Whether it's about fund development and sponsorship and the event professionals, or just the how-tos, the educational type posts, regardless of industry, regardless of what you're teaching. You lean in, you give them a teaser. That's what I love to call it, right? So when we're out on our Instagram story, especially if we're using the video side of things, right? And we're doing, hey guys, I just released my top 5 tips, as you said, for fill in the blank, whatever that is. And you drop the 2, like those. See, you could use those, click the button, and I'm always doing a pointing, right? So again, educational of, oh, really? That link is clickable? A lot of people don't even realize that they're still able to use the link feature in Instagram stories. So it's a way, again, to push them or redirect them over to whether it's your website. You may have some digital assets that are available to people on how to educational stuff. You may say, sign up or subscribe to the YouTube channel right here, for Cultivate Weekly, or for my newsletter, whatever the case may be. You're redirecting them somewhere else, either into that longer form content, like you said, or again, it's that quick hit of information using the link feature on Instagram. That doesn't mean it can't be done on other platforms. By all means, same type of steps for LinkedIn, as an example. If we're doing a carousel on LinkedIn, and now we're saying, okay, here's the first 2 or 3 of my 5 tips to fill in the blank. And then both, we're doing 2 things. We're using the graphic to go ahead and say, oh, click the link in the caption for more, or subscribe here. And then you're also doing it in the caption. So CTAs, or calls to action, can be multiple within one piece of content, because people consume differently as well. Some people will actually do the scroll through the carousel, or they'll watch the entire video. But if you're only leaving the CTA to the end, you're missing out on that opportunity to do that conversion and bring them along with you to do the next thing, to help them in their journey, to show up from a place of service and say, here I am, I'm offering value to you, and this is what I do. Even if you're talking about results of another project that you've worked on. Elizabeth, I'm going to throw it back to you. You work with a lot of real estate agents, and companies, and you can do these before and afters. And here's the next bit. Here's the next cake pop. Not the entire cake, but I'm going to lead you down, and I'm going to give you some tools or some tips and some tricks. And now here's how I can support you on your journey. So maybe you have a couple of examples that come to mind, because obviously you're playing in that space on a regular basis, and you have been for quite some time. So I'm sure there's some direct results that you can talk about.
Yeah, sure. So, specifically about the real estate side of things, we have a video actually coming out on Thursday that the agent I work with is doing. Sorry about the giant truck noises, if and the one pulling out beside us. Uh, but it is this. She's doing five legal terms that you should know as a, when you're buying a house, etc. And this is something I think that everybody could do with whatever subject you're working on. Pick five glossary terms that people might need to know about your business or the products that you use or the process with which you make something or do something like that. Am I glitching out too bad? I feel like I'm okay. Um so oh, she's shaking her head. Can you hear me okay? Okay. And so this is the this is how that works. So you can so she does these five legal tips. So we're putting the longer form piece of content on YouTube itself. So that's where the bigger part's going to be housed. But we're going to chop up each of those five terms into separate shorts. And so now we have five separate reels for us to be able to post. But we can include in the caption, hey, if you want to know all of them, head over that way. Now, we are talking a little bit about, so this is an easy concept to get a hold of when you have five of something or seven of something. Like it's easy to think through the cake poppiness of it. But the truth of the matter is it's possible for you to do this with different types of content as well. So Stephanie, this last week I was in Florida helping a team that do 24/7 live streaming of an eagle camera, a bald eagle, American bald eagle camera in their backyard. Basically, they own a ranch there with cattle, lots and gators and all of these things. Um, and so we were talking about and they're working on creating more short form content. I mean, theirs is all day content. Do you know what I mean? And so we've been talking about how to harness and make cake pops out of 24/7 content. Now, one thing that they have to their advantage is a group of lovely ladies in Ireland that that watch the Eagles in Florida, and they excuse me, will comment with timestamps of when something happens, because eagles don't stay in the nest all the time. And so they're commenting when they show up, when they bring a branch, when they fight, when and there's no babies this year unfortunately, but when the babies hatch and when things go on. But there's people all over the world that will type that in. And so what I was saying to my friend is, well, now we can go back in to those moments and pull the action shots from these things that happen in the middle of the night for the Florida team, but the Ireland team is getting to see it in real time. And so, but thinking retro, actively creating content from it. So, for instance, and so I'm trying to get you to think of this in your own context. You may not be doing 24/7 Eagle cams, but you may be able to do a longer form piece of content, whether it's like Stephanie and I here on the show, where we're recording a longer piece of content. This program that we're using, Riverside, actually has a way for us to chop up these videos into smaller pieces. And I know I'm a little bit all over the place today, Steph, so I'm sorry about that. But the idea of it is finding the juiciest bits. So one way that you can do it, let's say you have a piece of long form content. You did a podcast, you just recorded a video and just like started to let yourself talk about stuff. You or wrote a blog or something like that. You could take the blog itself, or you can take the transcript from your video. There's different programs that will get you transcripts now, so just look those up, check them out. Like for instance, I use Adobe Premiere to pull my transcripts. I believe that you might be able to get one from CapCut. I'm not sure about that as far as exporting it. Adobe podcast.adobe actually may have, I think they're developing, and I think there's portions of it that are premium, portions of it that are free that enhance audio and stuff, but podcast.adobe.com, you can get transcripts from that. But find you something where you can pull the transcript, take it over to ChatGPT and say, without changing a word, tell me what are the three most interesting things that I've said in this, and pull those out. what that does for you, if it's a video recording or an audio recording, you can go back and edit and pull out that video and create your short form video from it. When I mentioned the retro actively creating content, what we did, and I'll drop a link in the chat to the YouTube video that we did. It's got over 1,000 views, yay, on YouTube. It's a YouTube short. But I was watching the eagle cam. I know I'm going back, but I saw an eagle yawn, and so I was thinking, okay, how can we use this? So we got one of the kids there on the farm to read a question, and I just recorded their audio because we try not to put kids on camera. You know, an adult needs to be in camera, by the way, if there's ever a child on video or something like that. So we just recorded their audio, and I had one of the little girls say, "Do eagles yawn?" And then we cut to the video that I captured from the 24/7 cam. Well, she didn't ask that question first. We saw the thing happen, and then we answered the question. So, how could you do that in answering questions for your business or doing an FAQ? You know the answers, but what are the questions people are asking that you can harvest this little piece of content from a longer piece and frame it by adding the question rather than just speaking answers the whole time? That was a lot, and I'm gonna hand it back to you, Steph, to make something out of it.
No, but it's true. And I apologize because I put in the tip, right? Re-engineer, reverse engineer the back, like whether it is those FAQs. And I loved when you were breaking down, if you have this piece of content, and I was starting to make my notes because when I think about my own process and what it looks like, just what we're doing right here on Riverside, and again, time is the one resource we all have the same amount of. And so, how are we using that time to move ourselves and our business forward and to reach those people that we want to work with? And so, to just think through quite simply, when we complete one of our cultivate weekly topics, right, and we hit that stop button within minutes, and let me be very clear to those watching on the replay, we haven't gotten our own system down, but I'm going to share with you what we have done, not consistently yet, but we're getting there. Riverside as a tool, again, it grabs the video. We have the ability to do the show notes or the transcript. I can bring the transcript out. I can throw it into another tool like ChatGPT. I can give it very, very simple prompts, again, guide it as much as possible and give it what the topic was for the whole thing. And to Elizabeth, your point of, what is it? But I go further. I go, give me examples of what a carousel could look like. Give me an example of what a blog could look like on this topic. What could it be for my newsletter, the seeds, right? So I'm just repurposing. And then again, when I'm breaking that down into the stories, as we said, what's the top two or a couple of tips? And then linking it back to those pieces and wherever they live, wherever you host those pieces of content. And then a reel or a YouTube short. And we did talk about this last week, this notion of how people are using even tools like ChatGPT to search. It's acting as a search engine. And so think through that optimization piece. We do not, and I certainly do not claim to be an SEO expert by any means, but you can put those prompts in, breaking it down, and then it's serving it up in different ways, or that cake pop strategy that we keep referring to. So it is about looking at that big amount, so not overwhelming yourself and not overwhelming your community with how you serve up that content. And I think, Elizabeth, you and I are both guilty when we say, well, we want to just answer the question with all of the things. But now it's thinking through what that could look like in a meaningful way and multi-purpose use or repurposing that content in a meaningful way across the platforms that you're already on. Because again, people consume content differently. So you need to show up differently on those platforms, and they may need different tweaks for calls to action depending on how you're serving up the content. A like on Facebook is different than, a like style engagement on Instagram, or what it is on LinkedIn or over on TikTok or YouTube for that matter. So it is about that reverse engineering of the really big long form. And then also if you have short form, same concept applies, is that you've got, hey, well, I've got 3 tips and they're super quick and easy, but how do I build on that? And it's the same process. Hopefully that gives people a little bit of a framework to work towards, again, that reverse engineering using the cake pop strategy. Back over to you,
And
Elizabeth.
yeah, and I love because it's something you said there sparked this idea of reorganizing and reordering your topics. So bear with me on this if I can get it out. Because when you think about cake pops, that we've been talking about, how it's gonna it this little bite has all the flavors of what a larger cake could have, but you can mix and match those things and reorder those things into different packages. So, for instance, let's take the idea of what it's like for one of your clients to work with you, and you think through all the different moments that you have with them, whether it's the first time they hear about you, it's the what's that first call look like, what does onboarding look like, what does the process look like, what does offboarding, what does after the fact look like, and regrouping some of those topics. So that for me, like there's the workflow side that you could group that in, but then you could actually go back in and think through, okay, now that I've walked through the whole workflow of this thing, how can I regroup some of these things? So there's portions of the onboarding where they're gathering their own content, and then the offboarding where they're gathering the content that you've done together, that you could group some of those things together. You could group the curiosity part, the I don't know. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is you can take the flavors of these different areas and add it in. Something I've talked about before is, what does your product, business, or service look like through the lens of different ideas? So you're taking the flavor of Mother's Day, for instance, that's coming up. What does your product, service thing look like in the context of Mother's Day? Now, if you're selling car wheels, it may not, that one you may be like, I don't know, what does it look like for Mother's Day? Well, how about you want your mom safe on the road, so you check on her car. You say, Mom, when was the last time you had your engine checked, your wheels checked? Let me take your car to the tire place. And so the tire place could tell that story of, if you care about your mom, make sure her tires aren't bald. But then there's other things. There's graduation. So let's think about the same tire story with a graduation. You're sending your kid off to school. You've packed up their car. You want to make sure that they get there. And so it's talking it through that lens. Let's see, where else could we go? With summer coming, the end of school, what does vacation look like if you're driving to your destination? And just saying, make sure that your trip there is as carefree as the time on the beach. So it's reframing these ideas in with different flavors, and repurposing them in that way. And I didn't do a really good job. Like, I mean, the end part is fine, but I forget what you were saying, Steph. That that made me think of that. But just the
No,
different
and it
ways
is
that
the
people are
reverse
approaching.
engineering, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yep.
that that's exactly what you were saying. And it's just about the package. It's this notion of the mixing and the matching, or the reordering of things, and then serving it up in a unique way. It oftentimes, even from an event perspective, I was thinking about ideas as you were going through, and it's, I've there were times I'm like, well, how do I show that? And it's the befores and afters, it's the reflective moments. You want people to be able to basically raise their hand and self-identify that, ooh, that's cool, I need that, I want to work with that person, or I want to do that, how do I do that? And so again, if you know what the questions are, those FAQs that you reminded us of earlier in the conversation, you already know the answer. And so it's, how do you serve those things up in a really unique way? And that doesn't mean that you need to overproduce video. I mean, listen, if you've got the ring light and you've got all of the other stuff or a handheld, wonderful, great. Use it and enjoy it. But we are noticing, or at least I am, and I think you would probably agree to Elizabeth, that a lot of the video content that we're seeing out there right now, well, some of it's super cool, and I go, whoa, that's neat. How did they do that? And then they show you how they did it. A lot of it is just, guys, it's got good lighting, not great lighting, but it's the message. It's the message that's being sent, making sure that even when you're doing that, again, a little tip outside of just the K-pop strategy, but just a friendly reminder that many people are actually watching videos without sound on. Sometimes, so the captions and making sure that you're having the captions on, little tips and tricks like that. And as you get more comfortable and you start thinking about that reverse engineer, or putting in the slow mo, and again inserting what you know to be true in your business for your service for your product, and how you're coming across to attract the right people into your community, and hopefully start those conversations, because conversion, a lot of the time people think that's the name of the game, and ultimately, yes, conversion is sales or signing up that new client, but we need to help them understand how we're going to help them and what's in it for them when they work with somebody like you, Elizabeth, to build out their social media strategy or to get those custom gifts. And from my perspective, again, from a strategy of whether you're launching a product, whether it's crisis management, whether it's fund development, I need to be able to serve up the different things that I do that are relatable to the people that I'm trying to work with. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do. Back over to you, Elizabeth,
I,
as we get ready to wrap up.
yes, I love that you brought up captions. And so, as we're closing out these last couple of minutes, I haven't had a chance to fully dive into the new Canva update, but I did see two things that I'm really excited about. One is caption animations. So you can make every word pop with animated captions in Canva now. So if you're doing any of your video editing there, and I've started playing with it more and more, I'm using Adobe products, Premiere and After Effects and stuff, but for some simple things, Canva really is great because it's on all the machines. It can be on your phone, it can be on your computer, it can be on your iPad. So you can, and it has it's web based. So all of the files that you're working on, say you started working on it on your computer and then you have to run. Well, in your transportation, you can actually get on your phone and work on continuing to create content. So anyway, check that out. And then the other one, Steph, for Canva, the AI voice, where you type the text and can create a professional voiceover in seconds. I'm curious to hear their voices and their takes on it. I know that there's products out there that you can teach it your voice, and when you type things out, it will give a voiceover in your own voice. But I don't think this is that sophisticated yet, but it could still be pretty fun for people to play around with, to do, because I've done this for my own voiceovers for my short reels where I've filmed B-roll. And then instead of me just doing a voiceover, I could just take what I've typed out, throw it into the AI voiceover in Canva, and let it read the thing over top of the B-roll side of things. So it might be a really fun way to crank out some content for it. Like, for instance, when I worked for the restaurant, I would film one plate of food. Like, we'd have the brisket on the table, and I would film it slow motion, whatever, and then I would just read the menu description over top of that, and I'd have this nice B-roll with the description from the menu. It's not like I'm writing anything new, it was already written in the menu. But now I would be able to just copy and paste what was written in the menu and make a AI voiceover and let it do its thing and see how it sounds. So I'm excited to play with those two things. So those are my two things, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm going to hand it to Steph to finish us out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, see, and again, K-pop strategy. We can go in so many different directions. This is a topic that I think we have tackled, I don't even want to guess how many times, but over the last 3 years, because it's a friendly reminder, because it can get overwhelming to develop content. And people are always, or at least I found myself being guilty of this, thinking only about, well, I did that already. But we have to remember that we're meeting people where they are. And our community is constantly changing across whatever platform, right? So it will remind you of the reintroduce yourself idea. It's the same concept, right? As new people are entering into your community, starting to get to know, they've been intrigued, they want to know more, you can go back and look at some of that high performing content, regardless of platform, again, whether it's short form, long form, and use this cake pop strategy to refresh it, or just change up the caption, change out the CTA, the call to action, whatever the case may be. So hopefully this inspires, motivates you to take a different look into your content strategy. We want to remind you that normally we're here every, Tuesday morning, not next week, but we want to wish everyone a happy Easter as we go into an extra long weekend. And we will see you back here soon, Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Eastern. Have yourself a great week, everyone. Keep pushing those buttons and showing up. And cups up to all of you.